to the degree that we're an investor-owned water utility that serves the greater Chico area, totally 100% groundwater dependent, serve the community with about 65 active wells. So back in the early 2000s, we started having discussions of what's it going to look like in the Chico area 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, being dependent on groundwater and not really having any other options. So what if something happens to our supply, whether it be quantity or quality? And one thing that we're going through over the last several years is we're not as concerned about the quantity as we are sometimes about what's going on with the quality of the water. So we have 4 wells right now that have granular activated carbon treatment on them because of PC and TCE plumes. We have 3 wells down because of TCP. We have 2 wells down because of nitrates. So our supply is being impacted. And what we started to have discussions on was, let's get some conjunctive use going. What would that look like? Can we get a surface water supply to Chico so that during winter months, we can be dependent on that surface water supply when demand is down, let our wells rest, let the aquifer recover, and then during summer months, peak demand time, utilize both the surface water and our wells. But the idea being, can we get some recovery in the aquifer by doing that? So in 2005, we hired West Yost Associates to start looking at this for us. And the thing about Butte County is, there's table A water in Lake Orville that was really designated for in-county use. Butte County being the county of origin, the whole intent of that 27,000 acre feet was that it be used here locally, but how do you get it around the county? There just isn't a conveyance system. So West Yost first started looking at, I don't know how, it's probably kind of hard to see, but Chico's up here, and the forebay and afterbay are down there in Lake Orville. How could we get water from that area up to Chico? They looked at 2 different alignments of conveyance. One was a kind of a gravity feed to about halfway to Chico, and then we'd have to pump and pipe to the Chico area. The other was an old abandoned railroad right-of-way. That could be a possibility. That would probably pretty much have to be piped and pumped. Also, obviously, with a surface water supply, you would have to have a water treatment plant to treat that surface water before it could be served to our customers. Now, another part of that we looked at was, maybe we get the water there and just use it for groundwater recharge. So that was kind of something that they also took a look at. From there, another idea came up was, could we trade table A water from Lake Orville with the water project out of Lake Shasta and Sacramento River and do a trade and pull water from the Sacramento River to bring to Chico as opposed to the longer distance from the afterbay. This is about an 18 to 20 mile distance. This is about 5 miles. So the capital cost up front would be less. It'd still require a treatment plant. We had discussions with M&T Ranch about possibly using their diversion, but really the preferred method that we looked at pretty hard was using rainy collectors to pull out from next to the river and then convey it over to Chico. So that's been going on for several years, and that was really the table A concept. It's kind of morphed into some other things that we're looking at. One of them was discussions with George when he was with PID about possibly a pipeline between the Paradise Irrigation District system and our system in Chico. Knowing that sometimes they have extra water during certain years, they have extra capacity in their treatment plant, so we could bring down treated water to Chico as opposed to having to have our own treatment plant. So there was a lot of beauty in that. And then there's other things kind of out there. You know, PG&E wants to divest their assets further up in the Miocene and Feather River and higher up on Butte Creek. And we're kind of interested in what that might look like. Maybe their water would be made available through that process. Who knows? But so there's a lot of things on the table. This is very conceptual. We've still got a long ways to go. George, maybe I'll let you talk a little bit about what they're going to do and what's next.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. As a reminder, I'm George Barber. I'm with California Water Service now. I am the district manager for the Chico and Oroville districts. Been working with Pete for the last, since the first of the year on the transition in Chico. He's got 1 day left. And kind of funny because we've talked constantly about him handing me batons. Well, he really did hand me his last baton, I think. So anyhow, we do want to report to you that we got a commitment from our board, our board of vice presidents to continue studying surface water up here in Butte County and how it can help with this situation. It initially started kind of as our own needs, and now we really see a potential ability to partnership with other folks in the area for the betterment of Vina Subbasin. So we will continue to look at all of these. The Paradise one has all kinds of different options to it. That they're also looking at, they have a situation where they're finalizing their water rights, and in that process they may have to release more water to the benefit of Little Butte Creek, not necessarily anywhere beyond that. So one of the questions that we've asked is, if you have an environmental release at one point, Magalia Dam, can you, and it's to sustain a certain stretch of that creek, can you then pick it up and use it for another use down the way? So we're looking into things like that. So in really fast, and we'll open it to questions. Pete covered most of the ideas, but we are moving forward with continuing to study. We're getting a little more detailed. One of the big things I'd like folks to focus on is like this concept right here. If we use those radial wells and we bring water over, we wouldn't build a treatment plant until we needed it in our area. So if there's an opportunity to partner with ag folks in those areas for that water, be pretty clean. If the radial wells are going to be closer to groundwater quality than surface water like you use. So those are the kind of opportunities we would like to discuss and kind of fish through as we're studying this to help not just us, but anyone that could be touching those areas. So, anything I missed?
Yeah, no, I mean, the fact that Sigma is now in our world really kind of makes this seem more doable because of the partnerships and because of the ability to maybe get some funding mechanisms that Cal Water can't do on our own. And it's pretty hard for people to expect that the Cal Water ratepayers are going to foot the bill for some pretty high capital costs up front, not to mention the ongoing operation and maintenance expenses.
George,
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm not familiar with the term radial wells. Could you describe what that is?
Well, a radial, this is my best shot at it. It's a larger cased well that is shallow, so it pulls water, basically river water, but it's through all the green, gravel, sand. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a pretty good estimate? So that you don't have the impact of diverting water directly out of the river, but you can still grab the quantity. Yes, sir.
George, I'm sure that agriculture would be happy to work with the city and Cal Water, just to note an interest, at least up in the Vina Basin. We have one mode of transportation for surface water. We're 100% ground pumpers. And so when we consider those options, we have to be realistic in terms of being able to deliver that water to the farms. I mean, for example, there's Rock Creek, which could be a mode of transportation.
Right.
But you still have to get it out
Yeah.
to the farms themselves.
Yep. And at least through this process, you're probably talking about a pipe pump system that may work okay with, your existing groundwater system, potentially. Who knows? But good point. We also are just getting the results of the recharge study from the county. Our consultant's is very interested in looking at that and analyzing it in light of the other things we've looked at in the past. Other questions?
So, George,
Yeah.
So given table A, I guess there would be an offset or 1 acre used with the radial wells versus 1 acre foot use, and then you could release that water. Is that, am I going too far ahead of?
No, you're online. The idea is that you have an agreement, because there's a certain amount of water that's released out of Oroville to the same people that are getting water from the federal side, and there's also environmental releases, etc. So you get an exchange agreement to where this table A water, you're pulling from over there, but instead of it coming from that side, it's going to come from the Lake Oroville side. But it's all 1 for 1 is my understanding. There's not any other ratio than that.
George?
Yes, sir.
You didn't talk at all about Chico Creek. What's the possibility of the water there?
Utilizing Chico Creek? I don't think.
I think it was looked at some. I think the issue was what's going to be the source of water to bring down Chico Creek to the Chico area. In other words, would it be PG&E water? There were some issues. It's a lot more conducive a little bit further to the south.
Yes, sir.
Your 64 wells, are they tied together?
The well system is essentially intertied together. It takes them all in concert, and we were just talking this morning that kind of the newest ones surround the territory more than the ones that used to be in the middle. But everything is interconnected. We are, just to be completely up front, Pete was talking about those contamination issues. Most of them are on this side of 99, and the way you clean that up is you use them. You use those wells and you treat them. And so one of the issues we're having with our interconnectivity is those wells are not running as many hours. So we're looking at actually splitting our zone in half, or our system down 99, so that we can operate those wells more and help contribute to that cleanup. Yes?
Are there any existing agreements where someone has traded Oroville for Shasta water? Has anybody done that before?
With an exchange agreements.
And the consultant did confer with the folks, the Shasta folks, on that, and they were agreeable to the concept.
The Bureau did that on Lower Butte Creek to supply the Sutter Refuge. It's kind of a pain, but that's a different deal. It's totally doable though.
Yes, sir.
What is your funding mechanism for this thought process? I'm a resident here in Chico. I've got vested interests.
I'm 11 months with the company. I used to be on the government side, so I think I know the answer, but I'm going to let Pete cover it.
Is the question, how are we funding the studies, or is the question, if there was a project, how would we fund the project?
The project itself.
Yeah, so it would have to go through our usual process with the Public Utilities Commission to have them approve a project. So, of course, there's all the analysis of what that's going to look like, what the cost is going to be, and what the impact is going to be to our ratepayers. So that would be the process.
Well,
So that's why
I want to know, as a ratepayer, I'd like
Right.
to know how much is going on.
Right, so we know that, these are expensive propositions, obviously. Probably, if it was just Cal Water funding them by themselves, it wouldn't happen. I mean, that's just the reality of it. It would be too much of an impact to the ratepayers. So that's why we're really pretty excited about kind of what's going on here, and this talk of a regional project where there are other funds coming in, and the burden isn't 100% on the ratepayers. there's grant money out there. There are things that just weren't part of the picture when we were looking at this ourselves. We always kind of figured, we need to look at this, see if it's even possible. It might be a study that just ends up on the shelf, and someday when somebody says, it's time to do something like we are now, we can pull that off and, okay, here's where we start. I mean, we've got this background. So.
Do you have an overdraft problem in Chico right now? Or?
No, I wouldn't say so. Christine can comment on it, but it's pretty amazing. I talk about this a lot. We know that obviously when we don't pump less, we see recovery in the aquifer. And we saw it firsthand during the drought. Our production went down about a third. And what amazingly enough we saw was some recovery in the aquifer right in the middle of the drought as a result of that less pumping. So the concept that we're talking about here, we know it works. It was pretty neat to see.
So I might disagree that Chico doesn't have a problem. There are declining groundwater levels underneath Chico, and they have been. If you look at the multi-completion well that's under the City of Chico that has records since the 40s, it is a consistent decline over time. And I think it's really important that we as Chico citizens accept that we need to sustain our groundwater, even though I'm on my own well. I still consider myself a citizen of the City of Chico. That we need to manage our resources sustainably. And I think that the municipal supply for Chico is having an impact on our groundwater.
Oh, well, I mean, without a doubt, like I said, we know we were pumping about 26,000 acre feet a year before the drought. Right now, our 5-year average during the drought is about 19.5. So yeah, but no, Christine, again, the experts here, there's been a gradual decline over years. And when we first started our studies before the drought, and looking at proposed growth in the community and that kind of stuff, that's really kind of what caught our attention was, we were really looking at needing, by the year 2030, what we predicted to be about 26,000 acre feet more that we'd be pumping per year. So, yeah.
So is it a true decline or just a population increase?
No, it's a decline. It's not only Cal water pumping. We've got ag around us as well.
And a lot of this is going to get detailed out through the project Christina described through that first RFP. What's the basin setting? What's it going to look like in 50 years? And that sets up the discussion about, do we have undesirable results? Is this going to cause us a problem? And how significant it is and what sort of projects and actions we're going to deal with it. That's going to come in a couple of years. The sort of exciting thing that Cal Water's been doing with this feasibility study and the recharge project we just completed, we wanted to start looking at the options we have, and we do have more options than most other parts of the state, to start working on them now and not waiting till we get further down the line wondering, wringing our hands, what are we going to do? Start working on some of these options now, which is could involve a lot more partnership to defray the cost and bring more people in where there would be benefit. And there's opportunities to do that. So, this, as we go through the GSP planning process, we're going to at the same time start looking at the range of viable options of the recharge projects with natural water, and then developed water, moving it around the county for people who have water in areas that need it, is just good water management. And it's going to probably bring us to where we need to be and then some.
And I'll comment on that too. Water levels in the Chico area, like in the groundwater dependent areas surrounding it, tend to go down during dry years, but during wet years or even above normal years, they come up a little bit. So we are still somewhat tied to changes in wet and dry years and hydrologic variability, which is a good thing. We're not just seeing a complete downward trend no matter what the hydrology looks like. So that, I think, reinforces the opportunity to make more nominal changes in the water supply picture and not really have to slash demand necessarily. We can address it from the supply side potentially. But also in the recharge report, at the kind of back end of that, there's really back of the envelope estimation of overdraft in each of the 4 subbasins enough, on the order of about 5,000 acre feet, plus or minus, put a big error bar on that at this point. Like Paul said, we'll characterize that much, much better in the next year or two, but that's kind of a relatively small number, but interestingly enough, it adds up regionally to pretty significant costs of, as you know, many of you, the cost of pumping from deeper or having to deepen your well. And so, you know, if you instead spend money on the supply side and supporting, you know, some of these projects or recharge projects, rather than paying more to pump, you know, there could be an offset in that way too. So that's something that we want to look more at, and the recharge report takes a good first cut at that. And it's encouraging, I think, for us to take a closer look and see what the partnership opportunities might be.
So in talking about demand and supply, I think it's really important to recognize that Cal Water has no ability or limited ability to affect demand. For the City of Chico, that's right in Ms. Linda Herman's lap. And I think it's really important going forward that the city look at the different ways it can support with its land use planning authorities and, you know, building codes and things like that, reduce demand. I mean, we saw, I think, a really good response from the community during the drought, and while that is fresh in people's mind and this process is going, I think it's just critical that we bring that forward through the city processes.
Christina, you mentioned 5,000 acre feet of overdraft. Are you referring to the 4 basins, 1 basin?
Per basin. Each basin.
So 20,000 acre feet for
Yeah.
Butte County.
For Butte County. And as you know, the groundwater level declines are very localized, so, you know, the overdraft picture is going to look different as you go down to management areas or smaller, you know, scale picture, but yeah.
Am I right in the assumption that some of the basins don't have any overdraft?
Some of our core subbasins?
Yes.
No, like Wyandotte Creek had about 5,000 acre feet, East Butte had about 5,000, West Butte had about 5,000, and Vina had about 5,000. So they all have areas of sun, and that's, again, really rough estimate based on groundwater level, making assumptions about storage coefficients of the aquifer in these different areas and groundwater level changes. So, a lot of work to do there, but yeah.
Is it true that,
Thank you.
is it true that water, and I need to be educated, water coming out of Oroville is a state project, the water coming out of Chester, federal project?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
So it seems to me the federal and state are getting along a little bit right now.
Yeah, that's something to be paying attention to.
Yeah, they want to get their water.
Okay, thank you so much to Pete and George. We really appreciate that. Okay,